Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, starting a very exciting series as we take a look back at that 2023 class and talk about some of these true freshmen that'll be hitting the field in 2023 and guys that'll have immediate impact year one. And we are starting off with Zachariah Branch, the number one wide receiver from that 2023 class, and quite frankly, one of the most exciting players in that 2023 class in terms of the speed, in terms of the dynamic playmaking ability he's going to bring to the table. Before that, just want to say thank you to you guys. And y'all know we like talking recruiting. So this is going to be exciting to talk about some of these recruits we talked about a year ago. And now we're talking about what are these guys going to look like as they hit that college football field, and specifically the USC fans. You guys have been absolutely awesome. We've talked a ton of 2024 recruiting trail, and the support, the fight-ons in the comment section that we have gotten is special. It means a lot to the boys. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And then more importantly, would love to hear from you guys where Zachariah Branch fits in year one, because this is a loaded USC wide receiver room. And Zachariah Branch, it'll be tough to find playing time, but at the end of the day, he's a guy that you need on the football field, and he's going to get his touches. So let's get into Zachariah Branch. But again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. First thing I want to start with Zachariah Branch and what he really brings that's different. 10 300 meter to 100 meter dash time is probably where you got to start. Like, he's a guy that defenses are going to have to respect the speed that Zachariah Branch brings to the table. I mean, 10 300 meter dash time, that is like some of the fastest times that you'll hear in the recruiting class. And I don't even think that's his best skill set as a wide receiver, because his movement skills, his ability to change direction, his ability to make people miss with the football in his hand, his ability to create separation in his route tree, that's what I think kind of differentiates a guy like Zachariah Branch from some of these other wide receivers in this class. You see a lot of guys with track times that have good track times and maybe struggle to kind of run those routes and create separation. Zachariah Branch's movement skills in terms of making people miss and creating separation, that's kind of what I think is going to separate him. And then you just add on like elite level track speed to his game. He's kind of a complete wide receiver let's get into where he kind of fits into this USC offense. And you see the depth chart here, and that's probably the biggest question mark about Zachariah Branch is not his ability. We know Zachariah Branch is a dude. Where does he fit in year one in this wide receiver room? You have Brandon Rice, right? Who's kind of your X receiver, that big physical receiver that can work the boundary. And then you have guys like Dorian Singer and Mario Williams, Dorian Singer, one of the most productive pass catchers in the country last year, transferring in from Arizona. Mario Williams, one of my personal favorites going back to Oklahoma days. And then you have Taj Washington, who's a guy that, please don't forget about Taj Washington, because he's going to be very productive and kind of one of those guys that I feel like just gets lost in the shuffle with how loaded this wide receiver room is. Taj Washington is also going to be a contributor. So that leaves us with the question, where does Zachariah Branch fit into this wide receiver room? And I think the first thing I want to say is going back to bringing and kind of taking the top off of that defense. Zachariah Branch's speed is something that defenses are going to need to respect and, quite frankly, need to identify Zachariah Branch on every play. Like that 10 300 meter dash time, he's going to be running by pretty much any single defensive back that's going to be on the football field. And so that just having that speed is going to bring something to this offense that maybe you don't totally have. And then the second thing is, and this is something that Lincoln Riley has been just so good at throughout his years, even going back to Oklahoma, is getting the football to his playmakers in space. And Zachariah Branch, and maybe Raleek Brown is a runner-up here in terms of getting the football to guys in space. Zachariah Branch, I think, represents the most dangerous player on the field in terms of having the football in space. And kind of what I want to talk about, the two things that kind of emphasize this the most when we go into the film here is one, that the getting him touches any way you can. That's screens, that's end arounds, that's these little shuffle passes. Because when Zachariah Branch has the football, like, it's different, right? The change of direction, the movement skills, the ability to make defenders miss, and then having that breakaway speed, he gives you the ability to just get him the football maybe 2 yards down the field, and he can break it for 80 because he has that kind of movement skills. And then the next one you're going to take a look at is just the straight, I'm going to run right by you if you don't put a safety over the top, right? And DBs, if they can't get a hand on Zachariah Branch, and it's awfully hard to get a hand on him at the line of scrimmage, he's going to run right by you. And then if you need any more evidence of Zachariah Branch with the football in his hand. I mean, you look at this is 6 guys with no blockers, and he just makes all of them miss. One with the speed to the edge, and then that's actually a disgusting move. We go back and watch that. That that is like truly some short area quickness that is just silly. Like completely shakes this guy out of his shoes, and then he has that track time that he's just taking it to the house and nobody's really catching him. Zachariah Branch, and I want to go back to the depth chart here because the big question with Zachariah Branch is just where does he fit in as a year one guy? The capabilities, I think we all agree, are there. Now, where does he fit in as a year one freshman? And quite frankly, I think he is an offensive weapon in a very similar way that Raleek Brown is moving to the wide receiver spot to get him on the field and to just be another offensive weapon for this USC team. Right? You have your really polished route runners. I'm not saying Zachariah Branch is not a polished route runner. Like Dorian Singer and Mario Williams might be one of the best route runners in the country. Those guys are your guys that are going to create separation, work that intermediate part of the field. You have Brandon Rice, who's going to be working vertically and kind of that bigger body guy. And you think about a wide receiver room, kind of like a basketball team and having all sorts of guys doing different things. That's kind of those guys' responsibilities. And then you take a look at a guy like Zachariah Branch, and you take a guy like Raleek Brown, who are just, we have these special caliber athletes, and we got to figure out a way to get them the football and let them go to work. That's where I think Zachariah Branch is probably used best, at least as a year one freshman, right? And he's going to become a better route runner. You saw those movement skills. This dude, when you're talking year 2, year 3, is going to be one of the best in the game in terms of a pure route runner. And if those skills aren't adequately developed right now, he's still fine in the field. And I'm not saying he did. Those skills might be there. He might be a guy that has really polished routes. And if that's the case, he's going to be playing like week 1, and he's going to be starting. Might be the best wide receiver on this team. But even if they aren't, he's going to be finding the field. And another thing I want to say before we close it out, Zachariah Branch's toughness from that slot position, it's next level. And I'm sure many USC fans watched that spring game. What Zachariah Branch was able to do in that spring game, and it wasn't the big splashy plays. It was his ability to take contact after the catch and kind of just get up and be able to catch contested catches. When you're working that slot, you're going to take contact. And he's not the biggest guy in the world, right? 5'10", 175, maybe on a good day. His ability to catch footballs over the middle, get up as if nothing ever happened, the toughness that he showed, that's what kind of excites me the most. And that's probably the biggest transition you have is these wide receivers might not be physically developed as true freshmen. And Zachariah Branch kind of showed that I am tough enough and I'm developed enough to kind of take those hits. And so Zachariah Branch is going to be a guy that when we start off this freshman spotlight, like there's no better guy to start it off with than Zachariah Branch because of how dynamic he is. And even in a loaded wide receiver room that USC has, Zachariah Branch is still going to find the field, and he's still going to have a tremendous impact on this USC offense. Again, want to close it out there. Please let me know in the comment section how we think Zachariah Branch is going to be used, because I'm still unsure of it. Lincoln Riley's a hell of a lot smarter than me, so I'm going to trust him. But I would like to hear from you guys because, again, this receiver room is loaded with talent. And how does a true freshman break in? I don't know how necessarily. I gave you guys my takes, but it's kind of hard to deny that he's going to be on the football field as a true freshman. So appreciate you guys watching. Again, if you do enjoy the content, lock it in, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be talking about a few other USC cats during this series, right? Tacky Curtis is going to be one. Deuce Robinson is going to be one. And then another sneaky guy, Quentin Joyner, too. And another loaded room at that running back room. I think Quentin Joyner is going to find some time as well. So appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. And if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.